I will go ahead first. Just a little bit about me. My name's Kristen Guerin. I work for U of L Health. I started out as a teacher. I taught elementary students with severe to multiple disabilities. I decided I wanted to go back to school to be a social worker. I did my internship at Frazier Rehab with Emily Coons in the outpatient spinal cord medicine program. I graduated and I started case management at Norton's Women's and Children's, and I worked at Jewish Hospital. Currently, I'm working at ULP Physicians at Cardinal Station, and I'm getting ready to go back to school to get my master's. So, and I'm very humbled and thankful to be here with you all today.
Cool. I'm the first one that has to use the mic, so does it work, or I can just project. So, hello everybody. My name is Max Monahan. I am the director of home repair at New Directions Housing, which basically means I oversee 5 programs that help existing low-income, elderly, and/or homeowners with special needs with free home repair. These free home repairs range from simple yard work done by volunteers all the way up to paid contractors doing roofs, windows, furnaces. And we also recently, in the last couple of years, have launched an aging in place program where we're helping people with those aging in place type repairs. So gut rehabs of bathrooms with walk-in showers, fold-down seats, grab bars, high-rise toilets, wheelchair ramps, handrails, those types of things to make sure that we can keep these homeowners in their homes. We're all about protecting legacy home ownership, especially in neighborhoods that are primed to go through revitalization, because too often it's the elderly homeowners who get the phone calls and get the postcards in the mail that say, hey, sell me your house today for $50,000. And these homeowners sell out, neighborhood goes through revitalization, house is now worth $250,000, and they lost out on all that potential wealth building. This is especially very important in the black community because this is where it happens most of the time. The hedge funds out of New York, outside investors, they buy up these homes and turn them into rental, or they flip them and sell them, and then they're getting all the money and all the wealth building, where our programs say, hey, stay in your home, let us help you out with some free home repair. Let's also get your end-of-life documentation in order so that a house can seamlessly transition and stay in your family, because the ultimate goal is we want these homeowners to be a part of the revitalization process, and we do not want them to be a victim of the revitalization process, which is what you see far too often. So that's what I do every day.
I'm Tony Curtis. I'm the executive director of the Metropolitan Housing Coalition. We're an organization that has been around since 1989, so 35 years now. We do research-based advocacy for fair, accessible, and affordable housing. You may know us through the State of Metropolitan Housing Report. We published that for 20 years. So what we do is create kind of that foundational data, usually have a focus topic we focus on every year, and make that data available to the community to use. It's used by organizations, New Directions, AARP, Center for Accessible, like across the board. People are using this data to bring grant funds into the community, build housing, determine where housing is needed and who needs that housing. So we're at the center of that discussion, producing that data, educating and advocating in the community, and also working at that kind of 30,000 foot level on policy issues at the local and state level.
So good evening. My name is Tahisha Rollins. I work for AARP here in Kentucky. I'm an associate state director there, and my role for this conversation is advocacy. So I work in Frankfurt a lot, although we just lost a big battle there. And then I work here in with Metro government to see if we can get policies changed to improve our land development code. So whether it's sidewalks that you can actually walk on or roll on or use a stroller without going over a tree limb, or whether it's more time to cross the street, or whether it's housing, I work on those type of policy issues.
Good evening, everyone. I'm David Allgood. I'm the Director of Advocacy at the Center for Accessible Living, which is a center for independent living here in Louisville. We're the first and largest independent living center in Kentucky, and there's 5 of independent living centers in Kentucky. And I spend a lot of time on housing issues, and like Tahisha, spent a lot of time in Frankfurt advocating for different programs, particularly those that make life easier for people with disabilities to live in the community or setting of their choices independently as they possibly can, and serve on a lot of different boards, committees, and commissions trying to hopefully improve the opportunities for affordable, accessible housing for Kentuckians with disabilities.
So one of the things that I wanted to start out with and touch on is talk about affordable housing. We're already in a crisis across the country, but especially here in Louisville, but not just affordable housing. Now we have to look at the accessibility part with it too. So on top of being able to afford a home, then you also have the accessibility part. What part of your organization are you working with that helps with that process? How are you, or what are you seeing in your community also with people that come to you in your organization that need help?
Yeah, and absolutely. Like, obviously, as everybody knows, with the baby boomer generation getting older and older, and they were maybe the last generation that could actually buy a house when it was affordable. They're not moving into long-term care facilities, or they don't have the ability to afford a quality long-term care facility. So their only option is to really stay and age in place. But as people get older, or they start to experience a special need where they have problems with accessibility, it's easier to actually rehab a home and keep them in their home and in their community where they want to be, rather than have them leave. So with our programs, it's a lot of wheelchair ramps and things like that. And, a lot of it is referrals from, other social service organizations who may be visiting with a homeowner and see that they have a need, that they can't get up and down their steps, that they're, stuck, confined inside their home, that they can't, use their bathing facilities properly, that they need doors widened, things like that. They get referred to us. And then if they, are low to moderate income, we can help them with those services for free. And that's really, what we're all about, is trying to keep those people in their homes, because there's not enough quality long-term care facilities. There's not enough, accessible, low to moderate income rental that's being built or that's even existing. So retrofitting their homes and keeping them in their lived environment is what we really believe in.
And we do the data side and the advocacy side. So you may have seen the latest housing needs assessment that was released in the community for Louisville. We used to be at about 31,000 units of unmet need for 30% of area median income and below, which is about $27,000 in our community for a household of four. We're up to 36,000 in unmet need now for that community. Another 14,000 on top of that, going to 50%. So we need 50,000 units. We need 50,000 units across all geographic regions of Louisville. We need 50,000 units that meets a diverse population. So that's not just single-family housing. That's just not multifamily housing and apartments. You'll hear a lot of conversations about middle housing now, missing middle housing. So that's duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, cottage courts, pocket neighborhoods, a lot of things like that. And so we have to have that available throughout the entire region, right? It's got to be all of Jefferson County, Louisville. It just can't be, hey, we need to build this in West Louisville, or we need to build it in Southwest Louisville. It has to have a community-wide report, because affordable housing is a community-wide issue, not just a district-by-district council level issue. And so we're pushing for that. We're trying to find funding mechanisms. We're trying to find coalitions out there who say, hey, we know where there is a dearth of rental housing. We know that where there is a dearth of home ownership opportunities. And we're constantly out there on the front lines battling and getting told that, hey, no, we don't need that here, right? And it's a lot of coded language, too. And so we're using the data that we get from these reports, Housing Needs Assessment, the State of Metropolitan Housing Report that we do, working in coalition with a lot of partners to say, hey, how can we get to the point to where we can build this type of housing? One of the biggest things is, and a big partner with Taisha at the AARP is land development code reform, which includes the missing middle housing reforms. So we're talking about diverse types of housing. We need all different types of housing. Not everybody wants to live in the same type of situation. It needs to be both rental and home ownership opportunities with equity building opportunities. And we're working on that. And it's going to take a whole community to show up, not just the naysayers to say no to these developments. We need people to show up to say, yes, this is what we need in our community, and this is how it will benefit me. This will how it will benefit my family. So when you see developments up for debate, show up, write a letter, contact your council member, show that there is a need, because we need those people saying yes as much to counter that heavy naysayer argument as well.
So AARP is a membership organization for people 50 and over. And we usually break our membership down to people 50 to 64 and then 65 and older when we try to do most of our outreach and listening sessions and all these things. So my colleague down here said that, older adults, they can't afford to move into long-term care or this, that, or the other because it is expensive. But what our research shows is they don't want to move there. They want to stay in their own homes as long as they can. And if there was just ways to make that available, that they would stay home. They do not want to go to long-term care. So what we fight for is ways to make those modifications happen. We try to fight on the front end to have builders understand that you can build this home in a way that is accessible for anyone, but everyone will want to buy it. So the argument that we keep hearing is, oh, it's expensive to build that and then no one will buy that home. Nobody wants to live there. And that's just not true, because as we do age in place, we most of us will need those type of accommodations. So, we're really fighting on that end to educate builders, educate, people to understand that we do want to age in place, but not necessarily because we can't afford it, because this is where we want to be. We want to be with our families, want to be in our community. So that's really, kind of what we're fighting for.
And I would say that actually I work on a lot of different, like the Age Friendly Louisville. So there's 4 different groups that deal with that, but one of them is housing, and trying to work to create a more cohesive and large focused group that speaks with one voice about the need for affordable, accessible housing. We just created the Commission for Persons with Disabilities. Another advocate, myself, helped that get created. There's a committee on housing about that, and hopefully we can partner with Age Friendly Louisville to get that, enlighten our elected officials about the dire need that has just been expressed here so far, but also to educate our legislators. The cost of sending someone to a nursing home is about $48,000 for a shared room, or $64,000 for a private room. And if you go to an institution, you're looking at maybe $200,000 a year, and you can serve 3 to 4 people in the community what you can serve for those individuals in institutional settings. But also, it's a better quality of life first and foremost. But also, if you enable people to live in the neighborhoods, they can spend more money in the groceries and the restaurants and the dry cleaners, whatever it might be also. So a lot of times legislators like to hear what the economic impact is. And when we try to enlighten them about the cost that it does for people with a nursing home, and if you private pay, you're looking at about $9,000 a month. So you might think you have a nest egg for a nursing home, but it goes through real quick. My wife's aunt went through $200,000 in 4 years. So it can bankrupt you, to say the least. But, and a lot of people don't think about it. I've worked with home builders. I've tried to work with home builders in Louisville and the Kentucky Housing Home Builders Association. When I got hurt 42 years ago, I was 16. I didn't know I was going to need an accessible house. And that's what these home builders always say. Well, they don't ask for it. Well, I didn't know I was going to break my neck. Didn't know I was going to need that. You don't know you're going to have a stroke. You're going to pay off your second mortgage. Think you're going to be happy with retirement. Then your wife, your spouse, someone has a stroke, and now you're going to have to get a second mortgage if you can modify your house, if it's not a load-bearing wall by the bathroom. So there's so many variables. If they would just do this in the beginning and make everything universal design, when they were building this thing, it's less than 1% of the cost of the construction. And it would be so much more inclusive and affordable for people all throughout our neighborhood and community to be able to, participate. And like I say, I'm fortunate enough to find out about a program through Kentucky Housing Corporation, where my first home that I built, I had a 1% loan, and I was able to do that. I had 3 accessible entrances, and then I was fortunate enough later to be able to find a house in the Highlands that had been owned by someone with a wheelchair, and was able to purchase that. But if we're going to do anything in my neighborhood with my neighbors, we're coming to my house, because every one of those other houses has a step, and I can't get in it unless you use a portable ramp. So it's all about inclusiveness and feeling a part of your community. And right now, the way that we're doing everything I'm talking alone, sorry. But several years ago at Norton Commons, they were touting how it was going to be awesome. You could age in place. You wouldn't have to go anywhere. It was going to be fantastic. So I did the home-a-rama out there, where 22 homes were built. The only place that I was going to age in was going to be the garage, because that's the only thing I could get into. every single house had at least 5 steps to get in the front door, and I think all of the units had bedrooms upstairs, none downstairs. So they may talk a good game, but they really don't a lot of times know exactly what is needed by persons with disabilities.
So with that being said, can you tell us more about your initiatives and programs that you already have in place for accessibility and what your referral process is like for someone that would come to you?
Yeah, so for our program, our Aging in Place program, we actually partner with Spalding University's Auerbach School of Occupational Therapy, and we have their PhD occupational therapy students who actually do the in-home assessments on our behalf, because then they can educate our construction managers and our contractors on this is what this person needs to be able to properly operate in their bathing facilities. This is how we could reset up the kitchen to where it's easier for them to get in with their chair and things like that. And using that expertise informs our contractors on what we do. Most of our programs are limited to 50% of the area median income, which basically means your income, if you're a one-person household, your income has to be lower than like $33,000 a year. And we do only work with homeowners. We don't do any rental yet, because the idea there with our funders is like, if it's rental, in theory, the landlord should be doing something about it. Whereas a homeowner, you may be living on a fixed income. You can't afford a $14,000 bathroom rehab. Well, our program can do it for free. In terms of referrals, like I said, we get a lot from mayor's office, council district representatives, other social services. It's very word of mouth for our programs. I will say we get about 450 applications for free home repair every year. And last year we did 299 units, and that's in Louisville and Southern Indiana. We do serve Clark and Floyd County. So we're only serving, roughly 2/3 of the people that apply for our programs because there's just, frankly, not enough funding out there. And I know this is one of my big things that I always try to let people know and educate people on. There's a Medicaid waiver exemption, Medicare or Medicaid waiver, where you can get reimbursed for up to $2,500 for home modifications at your home. $2,500 doesn't buy you anything nowadays. In Indiana, it's $15,000. So you can get like a wheelchair ramp and like a bunch of like doors widened for $15,000. And it's just because obviously the way Medicaid and Medicare is implemented, which I am no expert in, is on the state level. I always say Kentucky needs to bump that up because you can really do some like real, changes to the home so people can age in place, increase the accessibility, increase the safety. Because ultimately, that's what we see is somebody experiences a fall in the home, or maybe they have a spinal cord injury. They go to the ER, they go to Fraser Rehab, they get released back into the home where they may have experienced the fall, and nothing's changed. So it's like, well, that circle is not complete. There needs to be, an aging in place program that can help them and say, okay, you experienced your fall in your bathroom. Let's get these PhD students out there to study it and figure out how to make it perfect for your life. And then let's get, New Directions and their contractors out there to actually do the work. So that way you can properly age in place and you don't have to leave that home or that neighborhood where, you go down the street to church and you get your hair done around the corner. Nobody wants to leave that sense of community. So that's what we always try to do every day.
I'll be brief. We don't really do direct services, right? We try to create kind of the policy foundations for affordable housing, for accessible housing, fair housing in our community. And so we're constantly working at that level. As I said, the land development code reform would be huge to be able to influence where different types of housing can be built. We have to be intentional in the types of housing we're building and make sure that it is accessible to all folks. Also the access to capital to do the projects, right? Like that needs to be for individuals, that needs to be for developers, that needs to be across the board because housing, as you know, is a big complex subject, right? Another big thing right now that in the community is addressing conditions in rental properties, right? The maintenance issues. Mm-hmm. And so we need to be focused on that. But the thing I keep hearing lately is that we need to address the maintenance issue and we don't need to be building any more units. We can't do that. Like, we have to disassociate those two topics when we're discussing it because we cannot not build to be able to meet the unmet need, but we also have to have serious conversations about maintenance and property maintenance issues in our community. So those are some big things we're talking about, and just kind of what we do, right? Public education, advocacy in the community for awareness. If you have groups that you want us to come talk to or have conversations individually, we're always willing to do that because we need to have an educated population to be able to influence policy. So it starts with those voices, and that's who council members and legislators listen to. It's not me a lot of times. I can tell you that for a fact.
I'm going to be briefer than Tony, who wasn't brief. We do not do we do not do referrals, so I'm just going to pass that right on.
Well, we do take referral, but what we do at the Center for Accessible Living, we're not, it says Center for Accessible Living. We don't have any on-site housing. We don't do any of that. What we do is help facilitate the Section 8 voucher process for people with disabilities. So we have we had a housing program manager. She's transitioned to a different position. But we've not been able to do anything. Section 8 vouchers have been frozen for about 9 months now. So you're not getting anything. It was challenging to get what we had before this. They stopped to froze that, but so that we would help that person go through the paperwork, how to do this, what to report, who to talk to. We had we still have a good dialogue between the city and other agencies that are up here represented. But right now, the housing program is on hold because Metro government's frozen the vouchers.
My next question for the panel is, how do you engage with individuals with disabilities to get their feedback about, what their needs are? Besides doing this panel tonight, but how what's your data? How do you get feedback from our people here in town?
Yeah. So in our Aging in Place program, where we use the Spalding PhD students, they do, and I'm not an occupational therapist, but they do 9 million different assessments to kind of, work with the homeowner and kind of grade them on how they are interacting with their activities of daily living, their independent activities of daily living, all these different assessments. And we do that on the front end, and then after the rehab is done, right away, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months to gather all that data to see, did these repairs really improve your ability to age in place? We also survey everybody who receives our assistance to get their feedback on what their experience was with us. We did have a homeowner who he had recently bought his home, and he was in a wheelchair, and we were able to do his bathroom, and loved his new bathroom, but then he said, my kitchen really, I can't use any of the cabinets because none of them were rolled up. He couldn't, he was burning his arm on his stove because he had to reach over, and we couldn't do all of the kitchen, but it's like, oh, okay, well, we can get a handicapped stove, range, no problem. We'll do that too, because it's not that big of a ticket item. But this individual, he was basically 50% AMI. It's like, okay, we can do that for you as well, and just try to do all the little things we can after we've already made our first interaction with the client to try to do anything we can just to make it a little bit better, because it goes a long way to for someone's ability to really enjoy and live in their home.
I think I would speak to two things. One's kind of a personal story, how I got into this work. I'm a historian by training. I worked in public history at museums for about a decade at the Kentucky State History Museum, but was engaged in this community and on multiple levels after I got married and moved here from Frankfurt. And we helped a refugee family from Syria. A group of us did to help find housing through KRM, in partnership with KRM, Kentucky Refugees Ministries. And it was a family of 4 at that time. It's now a family of 6, good friends of mine now. But the first apartment they put people in, the family in, was an apartment that was inaccessible. The father had a leg injury, and he couldn't get up 8 stairs and then down 6 and into the apartment. And going out the back door was a step down that went about 3 feet. And that opened my eyes. It opened my eyes to the housing world, to the inaccessibility, of not having enough units, enough quality units for people to live in. But for individuals who needed access, that wasn't going to work. So that was my first advocacy, I think, was negotiating with that apartment complex, say, hey, you have to find another unit here. We need accessibility, no steps. So that kind of brought me into this work with my background of other things. And then the other thing is from a data perspective, is every 5 years, HUD requires the city to do the analysis of impediments to fair housing. And so every 5 years, so since 2010, I guess 10, 15, and 20, the Metropolitan Housing Coalition has done that report for the city. And part of that report is not only developing an action plan on how to really confront these issues, short and long-term planning, but also collecting the data from, we did that for our report, from census data, but collecting from reporting agencies. So we have multiple reporting agencies. We have HUD, we have the Kentucky Fair Housing Council. Sorry, they changed their name, so I have to remember what that is now. Kentucky Fair Housing Council, the Louisville Metro Human Relations Commission, and the Kentucky Civil Rights Office of Commission on Human Rights. Thank you, Curtis. And so every 5 years, we collect that data from the past 5 years. Who has reported discrimination in the Louisville community and what that means? And consistently, the last time, the highest reporting rate were individuals' disabilities. It was either through contracts that weren't written legally, that would prevent people from with disabilities from living in the property, just basic discrimination as well in the process of people applying for a unit. So that data is collected by these reporting agencies, and in this analysis to impediments, we pull that together, and so you can see what case was filed, the reason for it being filing, was it resolved or not, and what was the outcome. And so that's on the Metropolitan Housing Coalition's website. I believe it's on the city's website as well. But that's a good resource for data to be able to see what is going on in your community, especially that 5-year snapshot.
So I think the question was about how do you listen to your members, or how do you get information? How do you know what to do? So as I mentioned, ARP is a membership organization. We have 38 million members nationwide, 420,000 in Kentucky, like 80,000 right here in Louisville. And believe it or not, the older you get, the more you don't mind telling people what you really think and feel. And so our members don't mind telling us, our members don't mind telling us what they think and feel. So we choose the issues that we're going to work on based on what we hear from our members. And then we take that issue and we look for data from organizations like Tony's to make an informed decision on what we're going to do. So in Louisville, we listen to our members. We do workshops. We might do listening group, like small work groups. We do surveys that we send out by email, and they give us a lot of feedback, and they tell us what they want. And so one of the reasons that we got involved in this area was because we heard from our members who are trying to age in place and can't, or having a really hard time doing that. And so we take what we hear from them, we share that with the elected officials. We're like, hey, these people live in your district, this is what they really need and want, and we want you to support it. And so that's how we get our data, and that's how we decide what we're going to work on.
And we get our data through a lot of interaction for people with disabilities. Again, we're a center for independent living, so we help people with disabilities. I serve on I'm on the Commonwealth Council of Developmental Disabilities, the Spinal Cord and Injury Trust Fund, the State OVR Advisory Board, a few other ones, just a lot of the commissions that deal with individuals with disabilities. So as my coworkers, they deal with individuals, specifically focusing on people with disabilities. So I think we get a lot of feedback from the disability community about what's going on, about the second largest minority in Louisville, the largest minority in Kentucky, and the largest minority in America, and that's people with disabilities. So I think we get a lot of different input from our agency partners, but also just the people that come in for our services. All our services are free, so I think we get a good cross-section of what's going on in the disability community, statewide and locally.
I would like to open it up for any questions for our panel also, to give some time to ask any questions that you might have.
As a community member, I would say, how can we kind of help you guys, like whether it's helping New Direction, MHC, ARP, I think it's Center for Accessibility. How can we help, and how can we be more involved?
Yeah, I work at a small local nonprofit, so it's always about money. You know, there's never enough money. Like I said, we can't help all the people that apply to us every year. People ask, well, how come you don't serve people at a little bit higher income? It's like, because we wouldn't be able to, because we just don't have the capacity to. So it's always, it always starts with, hey, we always need donations, but also, we need volunteer advocates. We need people out there speaking about the housing issues, because too often, people people of privilege don't realize, like, oh, they're all these issues about affordable housing and housing for people with special needs and these types of things. A lot of people just don't even realize it's there, because people don't have no idea what it's not like to have, 4 walls and a roof. Don't know that. So, really just talking about it and educating people, like, hey, like, read the MHC report. Like, it's crazy, like, what the state of housing is in our community, and like, people need to be like educated about it, and like, just to know something about it, to where then they can be advocates to other people. And the more people that talk about it and the more it becomes an issue, the more likely that the large decision makers and the people with the deep pockets will actually start to care and listen and get involved.
Yeah, education, advocacy. I think awareness is half the battle. Creating awareness for yourself and for your community. Looking at the data in the State of Metropolitan Housing Report, right? Like, we know where concentrations of poverty are. We know where concentrations are with female-headed households with children, different demographics. We know concentrations of individuals with disabilities, and this is where we get into the geographic need for housing. So creating that awareness is half the battle. Knowing that data, showing up to conversations like this, right, and being able to go back out and talk about what you've learned. Maybe there's a new hot button issue that you learned about that you really become passionate about, and going to council. Like, everybody has the right to speak for 3 minutes before council at every council meeting. You call the clerk's office, you get on the list, tell them what you want to talk about, and you go and talk about whatever you want to talk about. So educating yourself to be able to do that is very important as well. Yeah, and getting together and we're all about convening conversations, coalition building, and it's a lot nicer when you have people at each shoulder helping you have that conversation.
How can we access the most recent report?
Oh, good question. How do you access the most recent report? If you go to metropolitanhousing.org, there is a drop down, and you can click on the State of Metropolitan Housing Report. Actually, I think it's still if you go to the website now, it pops up automatically, and you can click on it. So it's got all 20 years worth of report on there. So we got 20 years of good data. We've done a lot of other reports over the years that are on there as well. The housing needs assessment is not on our website. It's on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund's website and the Louisville Metro Government Office of Housing website. If you just type in Louisville Housing Needs Assessment, it'll be the first thing that pops up. And one of the good things about that, too, is they do market area studies on housing. So you can go to, I can't remember how many market areas there are now, but you can look at different geographies in Louisville to really take it from the large report, scale it down to a smaller geographic area to see what the rental housing need is, the home ownership need is, breakdowns of demographics, homeowners versus rental, types of housing, income levels, housing values, a lot of things like that. So it's a very helpful report as well.
What is the name of that one?
The Housing Needs Assessment. And if you just type in Housing Needs Assessment Louisville in any search engine, it'll probably take you to the Office of Housing report. But it's a lot of good data, and they just updated that this year, so it's really good.
And I will say, just to harp on that, as middle management, Max, my main job is to write grants and get money. I use the MHC report when I need stats and stuff like that to justify the need. The needs assessment always has good information that can really educate people on like what the real situation is going on.
Thanks, sir.
So I think the original question was, how can you help? And I just want to say, tell your story. So when I go in and talk to an elected official, whether it's here in Louisville or if it's in Frankfurt, or if I go to DC, they know that I'm paid to come and tell them what I want them to do. But when it's somebody who lives in a district, somebody who can vote for them, it makes a difference. So as Tony was mentioning, you get 3 minutes every council meeting. Get your story down in 3 minutes. Tell your story. It makes a difference.
Tahisha stole my answer, but it's exactly right. I mean, there's no more compelling way to get something across to a personal story from a constituent. Now, you have to be registered to vote, and you have better voted than the last 2 elections because they can go back and look and see if you haven't voted. And so why are they going to be concerned about your opinion if you're not going to be able to fire them by not voting or getting people to vote for another candidate? But it's really imperative that we all get together with one voice. And as you say, if maybe one of us here gets a subject on the agenda for Metro Council meeting to talk about housing, and then we have 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 of us that want to speak to that subject, then perhaps we might get some more traction on this housing issue and the dire need for affordable, accessible housing. But we need to come together. And I will say, every first Monday of every month at 2 o'clock at the Thrive Center and virtually, there's the Commission for Persons with Disability that meets. It's open to the public. You're welcome to come. The first Wednesday of every month is the Age-Friendly Louisville Housing Committee. So you're welcome to come to that at the Edison Center. So participation, if you want to get things accomplished, you're going to have to get out there and do some of the road work and wheel work. So it's really about involvement and getting your voices heard. And there's no, again, a lot of times I've testified in Frankfurt, and there's no more better experience in a personal situation, whether it be good or whether it be bad, to explain this is how it negatively impacted me or this is how it positively impacted me, and this is what we need to get done and make life better for everyone. And again, for all those, I always bring this up, I share to those constituents there, if you don't have a disability in this audience, because you may have a hidden disability, and that's the most common type of disability in America, you're a TAB, you're temporarily able-bodied, because you're only an accident or diagnosis away from becoming someone who's going to need potentially some of these issues that we're talking about tonight. So it can happen to anybody, anytime. It doesn't discriminate, male, female, black, white, Democrat, Republican. You can join our minority at any moment.
I mean, I want to say one other thing that reminded me is you see people showing up and telling their story. You'll be like, well, that's my story too, right? Like, go and say it again. If anything that I've learned in advocacy work, I learned from my predecessor, Kathy Hinko, who did this, was head of our organization for 15 years, is say it again, and say it again, right? The more elected officials hear this, policymakers hear it, community members hear it, the more they're going to be likely to act on something. So if you hear it, you said, I've said it once, well, say it 10 more times, and have another person say their story, and it's probably similar to yours.
Okay, we have a few questions.
I wanted to ask, we're talking about housing, we're talking about affordability and so forth. One of the things that's always heavy on my mind is I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't want you to say, I have to live here. What are you all doing to help, give people more choices in living places and accessibility, affordability?
So at New Directions Housing, we also own and operate 912 affordable housing rental units, and some of those are ADA. We're actually in the process of rehabbing 40% of our existing rental, and we're adding more ADA units because the need is so great. We also develop some single-family housing, and we sell those to income-qualified home buyers, people like 80% AMI, so like basically one-person household make about $45,000 a year. So we're trying to diversify the amount of housing that we have, and then obviously we do all of our free home repair programs as well. So we try to diversify it, geography and what we're doing, but ultimately at the end of the day, there's not a lot of money for affordable housing. There's even less money to maintain affordable housing. So it's a daily struggle, and it's I always tell my staff, it's like, I don't know if we'll ever win this war, but if we just win battles every week, it'll get better and better. And if we just help, if we can help 5 people a week, that's better than helping 4 a week. And we just got to keep, pushing the ball up the hill, and hopefully one day we can, really succeed.
And it takes that optimism right there. There are days where you feel like you took, you move one step forward and then take, 5 steps back, right? And so just, what we're doing is a lot of it's land development code reform right now, right? It's like we need diverse types of housing. We need it everywhere. And I'm going to stand up unapologetically everywhere I am to say we need to have that passed, and we need to have that passed now. But, I don't know what to do other than to stay engaged and stay in this fight, continually produce the data to show people what is going on in our community. We're in a housing crisis. We've been in an eviction crisis. It's gotten worse. The long-term impacts of, just seeing in the most recent housing needs assessment shows that it's gotten worse over the last 5 years. The pandemic didn't help out at all. And now we're going to be dealing with long-term pandemic impacts with not all the federal funds that we got originally. So, trying to, stay on top of the issues, continue to talk about it. Land development reform is very important. We're in missing middle housing. We'll eventually get the inclusionary zoning, which is requiring developments of a certain size to mandate a certain percentage of those units to be affordable. So, there are people in need that fit all these different income brackets across our community. It's not just one community. And when your expectation is, I'm going to exclude folks because they don't make the same amount of money I do, and then I want people to, commute on a bus at 2 hours one way and 2 hours back the other way and work this is ridiculous, right? If your stereotype of an individual is that strongly held, and you're saying, hey, I worked 30 years so I can live out here and you don't deserve to live out here either, you hear that time and time again in public meeting after public meeting, and it makes me sick. But we got to keep on that messaging. We have to do this in order to have a Louisville. I talk about housing. The keystone issue in our community is stable housing. We have to have housing for everybody. Everybody needs a roof over their head. And if we can stabilize housing situations for people, we can stabilize access to education, economic outcome, health outcomes across the board. So that's the work we're doing.
So for us, and your question was about being pigeonholed, 75% of our land in Louisville is zoned for single family only. So if you want to build anything other than that, you've got to jump through a bunch of hoops and go through these processes through Metro Council. So one thing that we worked on and actually was able to pass a couple of years ago was accessory dwelling units, ADUs. And it's like a mother-in-law suite. So if you had a detached garage and you wanted to make that into a little apartment, or if you had a basement that you wanted to change into an apartment, you could do these things. So if you had a college student, this is my situation, who's graduated, you don't really want that dude to move back in your home. You could, convert your garage, whatever, he have his own little apartment. You make that accessible, and there you go. What we're working on now is making it legal where you could build duplexes and triplexes and quads throughout our city. So right now you can't do that everywhere because our land is just not zoned that way, and it's done that way on purpose. So we're meeting with all of our council members. We're trying to get them on board. I think we're going to win because we're going to win. But it's one more step in this goal, this whole football game. And like you said, one touchdown at a time, and to win the game. We have our members. They've lived in their house 30 and 40 years. They don't want to deal with the yard anymore. They don't want to deal with a roof. They want to downsize, but they like to stay in their same neighborhood. And right now they just can't because those homes weren't built because it's illegal.
I would repeat whatever all they just said, honestly. And what Tahisha was stressing is that you can't do it right now the way that the law is written. So that has to change in order for you to ever do it. Right now, if you need an affordable, accessible unit, you're going to be in West Louisville or South Louisville. That's where you're going to be. So there's no opportunities, and because that's the way the system's been for decades. And until we get that changed, that's the way it's going to remain. So we have to speak up and tell them that it needs to change. And, I would like to reiterate some of those people that say those things that, you're only an accident away from spending all of your money that you thought you had saved up and then try to go live in Oscar Manor and see how you like it. So.
Was there any other questions?
Okay, so I'm a new disabled homeowner. I'm not in a wheelchair, but I have one in case I do need one. I was piggybacking off the young lady that was sitting over there, like you said, volunteers. Like, how do you volunteer? Because I know, like, myself and my sister, we both have the same disorder or whatnot. So I've been recently painting shutters and front doors and garage doors myself, as well as my sister. She's painting her kitchen. I'm helping her paint her kitchen. So is it like a way, to find out, like, who needs what? Because, like, I have free time. I can go help somebody paint a door or paint a wall. Or me and Bree was talking about just repainting our home. It's people out there like myself. I don't mind helping, but is it a way to find out, like, what those individuals' needs are and where they're located?
Yeah, so our volunteer program is called Repair Affair. It's been around for 30 years. We've done over 4,500 homes with over 45,000 individual volunteers. And yeah, we have volunteer teams as small as 2, volunteer teams as large as 50. They come from businesses, churches, civic groups, just individuals. And we match them with a homeowner who has some home repair needs, who has signed up with us. And a lot of times it is very simple stuff like, I always use the example, 87-year-old widow who's living alone is not going to climb up a ladder and clean her gutters. Well, we get a Boy Scout troop to do it for free. It's just making that connection simple and easy, and it costs nothing. So why can't we just do that all the time, all throughout the summer? So yeah, we have all those types of volunteer opportunities through our Repair a Fair program. And like I said, there's no volunteer team too small. There's no volunteer team too big. There's no volunteer time period that's too short. We have, groups that come from high schools that only volunteer for like 3 hours, but they'll trim down a whole fence row for homeowners getting cited by the city. And once again, predominantly it's elderly widow living alone. She's not going to get out there and, chop down a fence row that's overgrown, but the city's going to drive by and cite her for it. Well, we can get some teenagers to do it for free. It's easy.
Right. Do y'all have like any programs, like for myself? I'm always anxious about learning how to take care of my home, because like I said, I'm disabled and I know something bigger is not going to be an option, something smaller is not going to be a fit either. Is there like any programs, like as far as learning how to do small little plumbing things or?
Yeah, so
stuff
through,
like
actually through some funding we received from Kentucky Housing Corporation, which is the state level housing finance agency, we get funding from them, and as part of those programs, we do like a short little education with the homeowner of like, change your furnace filter every 3 months, and order the ones off Amazon. Don't buy the ones that are super expensive. Like, the 1 inch, here's the size of them. Some of those like smaller types of like basic home things that you can do to make sure that your HVAC system, lasts 25 years and doesn't blow up after 10 years, because that's like $9,000 to replace. So we do that when we have certain funding. And then overall, when our construction manager visits with the homeowner, they'll kind of educate them on certain things, because we have homeowners who, like, oh, I need more insulation. The upstairs is too hot. I need more insulation. And it's kind of like, no, you don't need more insulation. Your HVAC unit is not the right size. You need a bigger unit, and then the air will be able to blow all the way up to the second floor, and it'll be better. So we do those types of things organically when we're working with our homeowner clients to kind of let them know, like, hey, like, here's something you need to do, or here's something you can do, or here's another resource that's out there that would do things like LG&E through LIHEAP. Habitat for Humanity is doing home repair stuff now.
LG&E, they have like a first-time homeowners program where they come out and they winterize your home, they give you they gave me a screen door, light bulbs, they did installation and things of that sort, so they do have that.
Yeah, them, Project Warm is another great organization that does all like weatherization type stuff, because a lot of these older homes that are over 100 years old, they're not energy efficient at all, and replacing all your windows might cost $10,000. But there's things you can do to like help your LG&E bills, keep them low, although they're always jacking the rates. But there's small things you can do. So yeah.
You said it's called
Repair a Fair.
How do you sign up for it?
You can go. So actually, I brought cards for our Repair a Fair coordinator, Teresa Devine, and the easiest way is, you can sign up online now, but we're still very much, paper and pen, because most of our homeowners are elderly rather than special needs. So you sign up for the program, you just need a copy of your driver's license and a third-party document for your income. You sign up, and then we try to match you with a volunteer team, or if your needs are greater, we triage you into like our Aging in Place program or another contract rehab program where we actually use a contractor to do the work, because, we're not going to have volunteers do HVAC or roofing, but, we reserve those projects. I don't want to put volunteers to do a roof, because then when it'll leak a week later, and then we'll have to pay a roofer to fix it anyway. Yeah, exactly.
Right, big yes.
Do you have another? Okay.
Do you have to have any does it any qualifications just to be able to take advantage of some of the stuff?
It's just own and live in your home, be over the age of 60, or have a certified special need, and make less than 50% of the area median income. And that's basically it in order to get signed up. But like I said, we are oversubscribed, so just because you sign up, there is no guarantee that you'll receive assistance. But, it's better than nothing. And with our Aging in Place program, I think we did like 65 homes last year where we're spending like $14,000 per house, and like we'll gut rehab a bathroom, we'll build a wheelchair ramp, we'll do new wrought iron handrails where the old ones are all rusted out at the bottom. Like we'll do those types of repairs.
Does it, is there like typically a time frame on like after you apply, like hearing that? Or do you, no, don't even answer the question. How about this? Do you all contact and let the applicant know yes or no that, you know, they have to be there or what?
Due to capacity issues, we don't do status updates because like we receive over 100 phone calls a day, and the repair fair coordinator is one person, and she also has to coordinate volunteer teams and contractors and everything else. And in terms of when you receive assistance, it depends. You know, we had an elderly homeowner who called us when it was like single digits outside. She had no heat. For someone like that, it's like, all right, let's see if we can get you signed up today. We'll get an HVAC contractor out there as soon as possible, because otherwise, you know, this poor old lady might die in that house tonight, and that ain't cool. So it really just depends on the level of need and the emergency need and what funding we have at the moment. When it comes to private funding, we can rip and run and go fast. When you're using government funding, there's red tape, there's bureaucracy, there's steps to go through before we can actually get down to construction.
That's why we need all these able bodies volunteers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I also have a question for you. I live in Jefferson County now, but I never knew of any programs like this because I'm from Logan County, which Russellville, between Bowling Green and Hopkinsville. So a lot of my family, like I said, it's hereditary. My disorder is hereditary. So is it a program that you know of like that down there?
So
Because we never heard this, and I never.
not that I really know of. The Repair Fair program was started by our company in 1993, and we've given, you know, we give away the logo, the paperwork to other like counties, community action agencies, other nonprofits in other counties that want to create this own type of program. In terms of like specifically in Logan County, I'm not sure, but there's other, I mean, there's, depending on where you are, I mean, there's a lot of other nonprofits that are getting funding from Kentucky Housing Corporation that does, you know, $10, $15, $20,000 per unit of home repair. It just depends on where it is. But like I said, we only serve Jefferson County and then Clark and Floyd across the river.
I know here in Louisville is they used to, if you needed information, you come to the library and they had vertical files of different agencies in the area.
Okay.
So you might want to have your relatives call the library nearest to where they live.
Yes, ma'am.
See if the library has any listings of agencies in the area that can
Okay.
help with whatever.
Yes, ma'am. I'll do that.
And if they don't have it specifically at the library, maybe the library can do some research and find out where the closest program goes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, there were just two ideas came to mind. The city has a program; those funds go really quickly on repairing houses. The other thing is two other things. The library used to do a how-to festival, and so they would invite people in, professionals, teach you how to do certain things, drywall or whatever. And then there was a group, and I think it's still around because I think I still get their emails. Was the Louisville Time Bank, and you basically trade off skill sets with people. And some people do that. We'll say, hey, I'll come drywall a wall for you, or if you do my taxes, or whatever your skill set is. But they're an interesting organization as well. The Louisville Time Bank. Time Bank, yeah, TIMEBANK.
And then for your family outside of Louisville, we have 15 area development districts, and within there is the Area Agency on Aging. So there's 15 of them, and I know in Ohio County, which is not too far from where Logan probably, they did Repair Fair years ago. I don't know if they still do it, but they did it through their AAA, who also partnered with Community Action. So Community Action is also statewide as well. Yeah. Yeah. The Aging and Disability Resource Center is what he said.
ADRC would do the AAA they had, so that's what Taisha said.
Okay, thank you. We have any other questions?
Could you repeat what you said about the meetings that people can go to? Your voice faded it out, and I didn't hear what you said.
Well, on the first Monday of every month is the Commissions for Persons with Disabilities at 2 p.m. And it's in person at the Thrive Center on Market Street, or you can attend virtually if you'd like. And then the first Wednesday of every month for now is Age-Friendly Louisville Housing Committee, Subcommittee, whatever you want to call it. And that's at the Edison Center at 7th and Ormsby. And that is at 2 p.m. also. Both of those are dealing with housing. The Age-Friendly Louisville, that committee is all about housing, but the Commission for Persons with Disabilities, anything, there's like 5 different subgroups dealing with different areas of concern or issues for people with disabilities.
You're sitting next to Age Friendly Tanya over there. Can talk to you about that.
Are we good?
Thank you guys, yeah.
All right.
Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
Feel free to mix and mingle. Thank